I still remember that day. It was a quiet Sunday morning, the sun just peeking through the thin curtains, casting soft stripes on the living room floor. I was in the kitchen, preparing breakfast, my hands shaking a little, not from fear, but from the unease that had been growing inside me all week. The house was silent except for the gentle hum of the refrigerator and the occasional chirp of birds outside. I could hear my son's footsteps coming down the hallway, slow but deliberate, like he was about to say something he had been rehearsing in his mind for hours. He walked in, hands in his pockets, eyes sharp, almost challenging me. I smiled, trying to keep things normal, but something in his expression made my stomach tighten. "Mom," he said, his voice casual, almost too casual, "you'll never be as good as my mother." His words hit me like ice water. I froze for a moment, the spatula in my hand hovering above the frying pan, and felt my heart pound in a rhythm I couldn't control. The sizzling of the eggs suddenly seemed louder, sharper, as if it too had noticed the tension in the room. I still remember the shock, the sting of those words. It wasn't the first time he had compared me to his mother, but saying it so openly, in such a mocking tone, felt like a betrayal. My mind raced. Should I yell? Should I cry? Should I storm out of the kitchen? But then, deep down, a calm, sharp determination settled over me. I wanted him to understand, in a way he couldn't ignore. I set down the spatula and looked him straight in the eyes. "Then ask her to pay," I said quietly, my voice steady but cutting through the silence like a knife. He blinked, a flicker of surprise crossing his face, quickly replaced by irritation. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice rising slightly. The normal morning sounds, the ticking clock, the hum of the fridge, the distant traffic, faded into background noise. It was as if the entire room had shrunk down to just the two of us. I took a step closer, keeping my tone calm but firm. "I mean, if she's so perfect, if she's the one who does everything right, then why am I the one paying for everything now? Why am I the one holding this family together while she does nothing?" His mouth opened, but no words came out. I could see the shift in him, the confusion and the anger mixing in a storm behind his eyes. The air between us was thick with tension. I could hear my own heartbeat echoing in my ears. For a moment, it felt like time had stopped, like the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for him to respond. And then, just as I thought he would lash out, he did something I didn't expect. He laughed, a short, sharp laugh, but not one of joy. It was a laugh of disbelief, of frustration, of someone who couldn't quite process what had just happened. "Mom," he said finally, his voice lower now, almost cautious, "you're ridiculous. You can't just say things like that." His words, though meant to dismiss me, only strengthened my resolve. I took a deep breath and let it out slowly, the smell of eggs and toast filling the room, mixing with the tension, grounding me in the moment. "Ridiculous?" I asked softly, stepping even closer. "No. I'm realistic. And maybe one day, you'll understand that actions matter more than words." He looked away, scuffing his shoes on the floor, his anger simmering beneath the surface. I could feel his gaze burning into me, even though he was avoiding my eyes. For a brief moment, I wondered if I had gone too far, if I had pushed him too hard. But then I remembered all the times he had said similar things, all the times I had swallowed my hurt to keep the peace. Not this time. Not today. I still remember the chill that ran down my spine as he stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind him. The sound reverberated through the house, loud and final. I sank into the chair at the kitchen table, my hands trembling again, not from fear this time, but from the release of all the frustration and pain I had been holding inside. I knew this was only the beginning. Because deep down, I sensed that the real storm hadn't even started yet. Something was coming, something I couldn't predict, and I knew that the calm before it was just a fragile illusion. The silence that followed his departure wasn't peaceful, it was a warning. And in that quiet, I felt the first threads of fear weaving through my chest. I heard a soft knock at the front door, faint but deliberate, like a whisper in the tension-filled house. My heart skipped a beat. I wasn't expecting anyone. Who could it be at this hour? With a shiver running down my spine, I moved toward the door, each step heavy with anticipation. The knock came again, louder this time. I held my breath, my hand hovering over the doorknob, knowing that whatever waited outside could change everything. And then, just as I reached for the knob, a voice called from the other side, a voice I didn't recognize. A cold, low voice that made my blood run cold. "We need to talk about your son." I froze. My mind raced. Who was this? How did they know about him? And what did they want? The day had started like any other, but in that instant, I realized nothing would ever be the same again. I still remember that day, the day the knock came at the door, shattering the fragile calm of our home. My hand was frozen on the doorknob, my heart hammering in my chest as I tried to steady my breathing. Who could it be? I glanced toward the living room, half expecting my son to come back in, yelling, or maybe laughing at some joke I didn't understand yet. But the house was silent. Deadly silent. Only the faint ticking of the clock filled the space, each second stretching longer than the one before. I slowly turned the knob and opened the door. Outside stood a man, tall and thin, dressed in a dark coat that seemed too heavy for the mild weather. His face was partially hidden by the shadow of the porch light, and I immediately felt a chill crawl up my spine. He didn't smile, didn't greet me in any ordinary way. Instead, he looked at me with sharp, calculating eyes, as if he already knew everything about me. "Are you the boy's mother?" he asked, his voice low, deliberate, almost like a warning. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "Yes. I am," I said cautiously. My fingers gripped the doorframe as if it were a lifeline. "And, who are you?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he took a slow step forward, making the porch feel smaller, the shadows heavier. "I'm here because of what your son did," he finally said. My heart skipped. What had my son done? I had raised him, taught him right from wrong. He may have been rude, even cruel, but he had never done anything serious, had he? Fear and anger twisted inside me in equal measure. "Why, what about him?" I asked, my voice trembling. I could hear the faint sound of the wind rustling through the trees outside, a soft whisper that only seemed to make the moment more ominous. The man's eyes never left mine. "He made a choice," he said, "one that could change everything for your family." My stomach dropped, and a cold sweat formed on my forehead. A choice? What choice? And how could it change everything? I stepped back instinctively, clutching the door a little tighter. My son, my own boy, was suddenly at the center of something I didn't understand. My mind raced with possibilities, some darker than others. Had he stolen something? Lied to someone important? Or worse, had he put someone in danger? I couldn't imagine him doing anything that serious, but my gut told me this man wasn't here for idle chatter. He took another step forward, and I realized he wasn't leaving. His presence filled the entire doorway, and I felt trapped between fear and the need to know. "You need to listen to me very carefully," he said, his voice firm, almost commanding. "Whatever your son is hiding, you are going to find out soon. And when you do, you'll have to decide what side you're on." I froze, my mind blank for a moment. What side? Side of what? I wanted to close the door, to tell him to leave, to pretend none of this was real. But something in his tone, the certainty in his voice, made me hesitate. And before I could speak again, he handed me a small envelope. My hand shook as I took it, and I could feel the weight of it, not heavy, but somehow full of meaning, full of threat. "Open it at home," he said, stepping back into the shadows, his face disappearing into the darkness. "You'll understand everything inside." And just like that, he turned and walked away, leaving me standing there, frozen, my mind spinning out of control. I closed the door slowly, leaned against it, and exhaled shakily, the envelope heavy in my hand. I still remember sitting at the kitchen table, the envelope in front of me like a ticking bomb. I wanted to call my son, to demand answers, to scream, but the words caught in my throat. What if opening it made everything worse? What if it wasn't meant for me? Fear and curiosity waged a battle inside me, each second dragging on like hours. Finally, my trembling fingers tore the envelope open. Inside was a single sheet of paper, typed neatly, but with a message that made my blood run cold. Your son is not who you think he is. Every lie, every secret, it's all about to come to light. Decide now if you want the truth, or if you want to remain blind. I dropped the paper, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst from my chest. Secrets. Lies. Truth. I had raised him to be honest, to care for others, to respect his family, and yet, here it was. Something hidden, something dark. The ordinary Sunday morning had vanished completely, replaced by fear and uncertainty. I heard a noise behind me, a small creak from the hallway, and my eyes darted to the living room. My son's bedroom door was closed, but I swore I saw a shadow move across it. I called his name, my voice trembling. No answer. Just the sound of the paper fluttering in the slight breeze from the open window. My hands shook as I picked it up again, scanning the words as if I could somehow make them less terrifying. I still remember the cold realization that this was only the beginning. Whatever secrets my son had been keeping, whatever choices he had made, they were about to surface. And I had no idea if I was prepared to face them. Suddenly, my phone buzzed on the table. A message from an unknown number. You've read the note. Now, don't let him know you know. My hands froze. My pulse raced. Someone else knew. Someone was watching. And in that moment, I understood one terrifying truth: my son's secrets were bigger than just a misunderstanding or a small mistake. And now, I was in the middle of something I didn't yet understand, and it was only going to get darker. I still remember that day. The envelope sat on the kitchen table like a dark promise, and my hands couldn't stop shaking. My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, questions I couldn't answer, fears I couldn't face. Who had sent the note? How did they know about my son? And most terrifying of all, what had he done? The ordinary comfort of my home had vanished, replaced by an uneasy tension that seemed to cling to every corner, every shadow. I knew I couldn't just ignore it. I needed answers. Slowly, carefully, I dialed my son's number. My fingers trembled so badly that I nearly dialed the wrong number. The phone rang, once, twice, 3 times, and then went straight to voicemail. I listened to his familiar voice on the machine, the casual, teasing tone I had always loved, and felt a pang of fear. Something had changed. My son wasn't the same boy I had raised. I decided to go to his room, hoping to catch him before he could leave the house or destroy whatever evidence might exist. I walked down the hallway, each step heavy, each creak of the floorboards echoing in the quiet house. I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, the soft rustle of curtains in the living room, and something else, a subtle tapping, like someone moving in the shadows. My heart skipped a beat. Was someone else in the house? I froze, listening, straining to catch any sound that could tell me what was happening. I reached his door and gently knocked. Are you in there? I called softly, my voice shaking despite my best effort to sound calm. No answer. I knocked again, a little harder this time. The door creaked open with a soft push, and I stepped inside, scanning the room. It looked normal at first, his bed neatly made, the desk clear, his clothes folded. But then my eyes caught something unusual. His laptop was open, a series of documents visible on the screen. I moved closer, my pulse quickening. I still remember the chill that ran through me as I read the first few lines. The documents weren't about school, or friends, or the usual teenage worries. They contained lists, plans, and names, my son's handwriting neat and precise, yet the content made my stomach turn. There were notes about people, about money, about decisions that could hurt someone if things went wrong. And then, at the bottom of one page, a line in bold, almost like a warning: if anyone finds this, everything falls apart. I stepped back, my breath caught in my throat. My son, my sweet boy, had secrets. Real, dangerous secrets. My mind raced. I wanted to call him out, to demand answers, to shout at him, but fear rooted me in place. Who was he hiding this from? Who could get hurt if these plans went wrong? I felt a mix of betrayal, sadness, and rising panic. The son I thought I knew. I wasn't sure I knew him at all. I heard a noise behind me, a faint creak as if someone had stepped into the hallway. I spun around, heart pounding, but no one was there. The house felt suddenly larger, emptier, and more threatening. I could almost hear whispers in the silence, shadows moving where they shouldn't, and the soft hum of the laptop seemed to pulse like a warning. My hands shook as I reached for the keyboard, scrolling through more documents. Each page revealed more, a plan, a secret, a hidden side of my son I could never have imagined. I still remember the sick feeling in my stomach, the tightness in my chest, and the rush of adrenaline that made my hands tremble uncontrollably. How could my son be involved in this? I had raised him to be kind, honest, and thoughtful. How had it come to this? And worse, was someone else involved? That thought made my blood run cold. I knew the envelope wasn't a mistake. Someone out there knew, and they were watching. Suddenly, the sound of a car pulling into the driveway broke the silence. I froze, my heart hammering so loudly I thought my son might hear it if he were downstairs. The engine cut off, and footsteps approached the front door. Not my son's. These were heavier, deliberate, and filled with a sense of purpose. My pulse raced as I realized the man from earlier, or someone like him, might be back. I tiptoed to the window, peering through the blinds. A shadow moved across the porch, and my stomach dropped. Whoever it was, they weren't leaving without a message. My fingers clutched the edge of the blinds as I tried to make sense of what I was seeing. And then, through the small gap, I saw it, a folded piece of paper slipped under the door. I picked it up, my hands shaking, and read the words aloud, my voice barely a whisper. Stop looking, or everything your son has built will crumble. You have been warned. My breath caught. The fear was suffocating, a cold, creeping sensation that started in my chest and spread to my fingertips. I realized I was in something much bigger than just family drama. Someone else was controlling this story, someone powerful, someone dangerous. And my son, my own son, was at the center of it. I still remember the moment I understood one terrifying truth: this wasn't about me, or even my son. It was about secrets that could destroy our lives, and I had just stepped into a storm I couldn't escape. The wind rustled through the trees outside, sounding almost like whispers, and I realized I wasn't alone in this house anymore. I still remember that night. The house had never felt so cold, so alive with silence that pressed against my ears. The envelope and the threatening note lay on the kitchen table, but I couldn't touch them again, not yet. My hands were trembling too much. My mind was spinning with one question over and over: what had my son done? The documents on his laptop hinted at something serious, something dangerous, and I was starting to realize that I had no idea who he really was, or what he was capable of. I heard the soft creak of the stairs behind me and my heart jumped into my throat. Was it him? My son, walking silently, knowing I had seen his secrets? I spun around, but the hallway was empty. A chill ran down my spine. Whoever was watching, whoever had left that note, was making me paranoid. I felt trapped in my own home, as if the walls were closing in. I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I had to confront my son directly. I went to his room, my footsteps careful, almost silent. We need to talk, I said, my voice shaking but firm. No answer. The door was closed, and I realized I would have to open it fully, face whatever I was afraid of. I reached for the knob, paused, then pushed it open slowly. The room was dark, lit only by the glow of the laptop screen. My son was sitting at his desk, typing furiously, unaware of my presence. I cleared my throat softly. I saw your documents, I said, my voice low but steady. He froze, then slowly turned to face me. His expression was unreadable, calm, almost detached, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of fear. "You shouldn't have looked," he said quietly. There was no anger, only a strange, cold warning. My stomach twisted. "Why? What is all this? Who are you working with? Or, are you in danger?" I asked, my voice rising slightly with panic and frustration. He leaned back, closing the laptop slowly. "You wouldn't understand, Mom. It's not just me. It's bigger than our family. Bigger than anything you've imagined." I felt a wave of shock hit me. Bigger? What could possibly be bigger than my own son's life, that I didn't know about? I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but a small part of me feared that asking too much might trigger something dangerous. I still remember the way he looked at me then, his face serious, eyes dark. "I've been trying to protect you. That man, the one who left the note, he's not alone. There are people who will come for this information if they think I'm weak. And if they do," his voice trailed off, leaving the threat hanging in the air like a storm cloud. I felt my knees weaken. Protect me? My son was supposed to need me, not the other way around. And yet, the fear in his eyes was real. The room felt smaller, the shadows heavier, and the distant hum of the city outside suddenly loud, almost menacing. I wanted to reach for him, to hold him, to tell him we could face this together, but I didn't. I didn't dare. Then, suddenly, my phone buzzed again. Another message. From the same unknown number: "Stop him, or you'll regret it. Every secret has a price." I stared at the screen, cold sweat running down my back. Stop him? What could I possibly do? And why did they make it sound like I had a choice, like I was part of this game now? I still remember the panic rising in me, the desperation. I had always believed I knew my son, that I could guide him, protect him. But now, he was a stranger in my own home, and every instinct screamed that the danger wasn't over, not for him, not for me. I glanced at the envelope again, the papers still lying there, tempting me to uncover more. And I realized with a sickening certainty that opening them might change everything. But leaving them closed? That could be worse. Someone else was orchestrating this, someone who knew my son's secrets, and my curiosity might just make us the next target. Then, a sudden noise from outside froze me in place, a loud knock at the front door. Not the soft, warning kind like before. This was hard, urgent, deliberate. My son flinched at the sound, his hands tightening on the edge of his desk. We both knew instinctively that whoever was outside wasn't coming for pleasantries. I still remember the moment I realized we were running out of time. The danger wasn't abstract anymore. It wasn't a story I could ignore. Someone was here, someone powerful, and they wanted what my son had, whatever that was. And if we weren't careful, everything we knew, everything we had built, could be destroyed in an instant. I crept to the window and peered through the blinds. A figure stood on the porch, shadowed and tall, the outline of their face hidden by the dim light. My heart raced uncontrollably. My son whispered, "Mom, stay back." But I couldn't move. My fear mixed with a fierce protectiveness. Whoever this was, I wasn't going to let them take him, or whatever they wanted, without a fight. The knock came again, louder this time, and then a voice, calm but chilling, "Open the door. We need to talk, or everything will change." And in that instant, I realized that the calm, ordinary life I had known was gone forever. I still remember that night. The knock at the door had stopped echoing, but the tension it left behind pressed down on me like a heavy weight. My son stood behind me, silent, eyes dark, his hand lightly on my shoulder. He didn't need to speak, I could feel his fear, and worse, his determination. Whoever was outside wasn't just a stranger, they were dangerous. And I knew, deep down, that the secrets my son had been hiding were about to change everything. I took a deep breath and stepped toward the door, my hands trembling. Each step felt like walking through a storm. I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator, the soft ticking of the clock, even my own heartbeat, loud in my ears. When I reached the door, I peeked through the small window. A figure stood there, tall and silent, and something about the way they moved, calm, deliberate, made me shiver. I still remember my son's whisper behind me, "Mom, whatever happens, stay calm." I nodded, though I wasn't sure if I could. The envelope and the notes on the table felt like a heavy weight on my chest, a reminder that this was far bigger than I had imagined. With a shaking hand, I opened the door just a crack. The figure's face was partially visible now, a man, mid-30s, sharp eyes, thin lips pressed into a line that said more than words ever could. He held out his hand, not to shake, but to give me something. A second envelope. "This is for him," he said, his voice calm but commanding. "If he reads it, everything changes. If you do, well, you might not survive the consequences." My heart skipped a beat. I looked at my son, who had silently approached, eyes narrowing at the man. "Who are you? What do you want?" he demanded. The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stepped closer, his presence filling the doorway like a shadow that had grown too large. "You know too much," he said finally. "But you don't understand the full truth. He has information, things that could ruin lives if the wrong people find out. And they are already looking." I still remember the icy chill that ran down my spine. "Information?" I asked, voice barely above a whisper. "What information?" The man's eyes flicked to my son, then back to me. "You'll see soon enough. But you must be careful. One wrong move, and it's not just your son who will suffer." My son's hands clenched into fists. "Enough! You can't threaten us like this," he said, voice low but firm. The man's expression didn't change. He handed over the envelope and stepped back, fading into the shadows. Before I could react, the door closed with a soft click, leaving us in silence. The house felt smaller, heavier, almost suffocating. I still remember staring at the envelope, my hands shaking as I picked it up. The weight of it felt heavier than anything I had ever held. My son leaned against the desk, watching me carefully, and I realized that whatever was inside, he wanted me to understand it, but not yet. With a trembling hand, I finally opened it. Inside were more documents, more lists, more names, and a single line that made my blood run cold: "Trust no one. Not even those you love." I dropped the papers, my knees nearly buckling. My son rushed to help me, his eyes filled with worry. "Mom, don't panic," he whispered. But panic had already taken root in my chest, spreading like fire. I still remember the sound of the clock ticking, loud in the silence, as I realized that our lives were no longer our own. Every secret my son had kept, every hidden plan, was part of something much larger. And now, someone was watching us, controlling us, threatening to destroy everything if we made the wrong move. Suddenly, a noise from the window made me jump, a soft tapping, almost like a warning. I looked outside but saw nothing. My son's hand found mine, gripping tightly. "Mom, they're here," he whispered. "And they're not going to stop until they get what they want." I still remember the cold fear that washed over me. For the first time, I realized that protecting him wasn't just about stopping strangers. It was about understanding what he had done, what secrets he held, and facing the possibility that the world he was involved in was darker and more dangerous than I could have ever imagined. And then, the lights flickered, just for a moment, plunging the room into near darkness. My son grabbed the envelope, his hands tight on it, and said, "We need to move. Now." I didn't know where we would go, what we would do, or who we could trust. But I knew one thing: nothing would ever be the same again. The quiet life I had once known, the simple peace I had cherished, was gone. And in that moment, I understood that the danger wasn't outside the door anymore, it was inside our home, inside our family, inside the secrets we had yet to face. I still remember that night. The envelope in my son's hands felt heavier than anything I had ever held, as if it contained not just paper, but the weight of our entire lives. The flickering lights had vanished, leaving the room dim and uneasy, shadows stretching across the walls like warning fingers. My mind was spinning. Who were they? What did they want? And most importantly, how deep was my son involved? We didn't have time to think. My son moved quickly, almost silently, grabbing his coat and motioning for me to follow. "Mom, we can't stay here," he whispered. I nodded, my legs trembling but my heart steeled with determination. Every instinct in me screamed that this was serious, more serious than any fight we had ever had, more dangerous than anything I had imagined. I still remember stepping into the night air, cold and sharp against my skin. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it the faint echo of footsteps, though no one was visible. I clutched my son's arm, feeling both fear and a strange sense of resolve. Whatever secrets he held, I wasn't going to let anyone, strangers, threats, or forces I couldn't see, destroy him or our family. We walked down the street, quiet and careful, keeping to the shadows. I noticed the usual comfort of our neighborhood, the streetlights, the distant hum of traffic, the occasional bark of a dog, felt different. Each sound was sharper, more threatening, as if the world itself had shifted into a dangerous rhythm. My son led me to a small car parked a few blocks away. Its engine was already running, a sign that this had been planned. I still remember climbing in, the leather seat cold beneath me, the envelope clutched tightly in my son's hands. He started the engine and glanced at me, his expression unreadable. "Mom. I've kept you in the dark for a reason," he said quietly, eyes fixed on the road. "I thought I was protecting you. But now, it's too late. They know, and we have to move fast." My stomach dropped. "Move where? Who are they? What did you do?" I asked, my voice trembling. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. "It's not what I did, it's what I discovered. Something big, something dangerous. I didn't want you involved, but now there's no choice." I still remember the tension that filled the car, thick and suffocating. Every shadow outside felt like it could hide an enemy, every passing car a potential threat. My mind raced through possibilities, each one darker than the last. And yet, through the fear, I felt a strange clarity. This was our moment, we had to face the truth together. We drove in silence for a few minutes, the only sounds the hum of the engine and the occasional rustle of leaves against the windows. Then, my son pulled into a small, deserted parking lot, the kind that looked abandoned in the night. He cut the engine and turned to me, his eyes serious, almost pleading. "Mom. I have to show you something. Something you need to see to understand why all of this is happening." I still remember following him into a nearby building, its interior dimly lit, the air heavy with dust and an almost electric tension. He led me to a small room, walls lined with shelves, boxes, and papers scattered everywhere. In the center was a folder, marked with a name I didn't recognize. My son opened it carefully and handed me a set of documents. I stared at them, my hands trembling. There were lists of people, places, transactions, evidence of secrets, lies, and manipulation. My son watched me closely, waiting for my reaction. "Mom, this is why they came for me. This is why I've been hiding it. If they get this, it could ruin lives, destroy families, even put people in danger. That's why I couldn't tell you before." I still remember the shock that froze me, the rising panic in my chest, and the fierce protective instinct that took over. My son wasn't just a child anymore, he was someone caught in a dangerous web, someone I needed to protect, no matter what. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed in the building, slow, deliberate, and approaching. My son's face went pale. "Mom, hide the documents." "Fast," he whispered. My heart raced as I tucked them under my coat, every nerve on edge. Whoever was coming, they weren't just here to threaten. They were here to take control. I still remember pressing myself against the wall, my breath shallow, listening to the footsteps grow closer. Each step felt like a countdown, each echo a warning that we were running out of time. My son whispered again, "Whatever happens, stay quiet. Don't make a sound." And in that moment, I realized the truth: our lives had changed forever. The danger wasn't just outside anymore, it was here, now, and we had no choice but to face it. I still remember that night. The building felt like a trap, shadows stretching across the walls like fingers, every sound amplified in the silent tension. My hands were clammy, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. The documents hidden under my coat felt heavier than ever, carrying not just secrets, but a responsibility I wasn't sure I was ready for. My son crouched beside me, eyes scanning the doorway, his body tense like a coiled spring. I could feel his fear, but beneath it, there was determination, an unwavering strength I hadn't seen before. "Mom, whatever happens, stay close," he whispered. I nodded, though my legs shook. Every fiber of my being wanted to flee, but I couldn't abandon him. I still remember the sound of the footsteps growing louder, deliberate, echoing through the empty building. The tension was unbearable, each step a countdown. Then, a voice, cold, sharp, almost like ice cutting through the air, called out, "We know you're here. Come out, and no one gets hurt." My blood ran cold. The voice wasn't just threatening, it carried authority, power, and danger. Whoever it was, they weren't bluffing. I tightened my grip on the documents, realizing that we were no longer just hiding, we were in the center of something much bigger than ourselves. My son made a decision in an instant. He grabbed my hand, pulling me toward a side exit I hadn't noticed before. "This way," he whispered urgently. We moved silently, crouched, holding our breath. I could hear the intruder's footsteps split, searching, circling. Every creak of the floor, every whisper of movement outside the walls made my stomach twist with fear. I still remember the cold air hitting my face as we stepped outside, the night wrapping around us like a protective cloak. My son paused behind a dumpster, pressing the documents tightly against his chest. "Mom, you need to know the truth," he said, his voice low, urgent. "Everything I've been hiding, it's not just secrets. It's a chain of actions that could ruin lives. And now, they want it back." I swallowed hard, fear and worry threatening to paralyze me. "But, why? Why all this?" I asked, my voice trembling. He shook his head, eyes dark with something I hadn't seen before, guilt, fear, and resolve all mixed together. "Because the world isn't what it seems, Mom. People think I'm just a kid, but I've seen things, learned things, things that could change everything if they get out. And now, they're here to stop me." I still remember the terror twisting in my chest as headlights suddenly lit up the alley. A car pulled up silently, doors opening without a sound. Shadows moved fast, almost too fast to follow. I gripped my son's hand tighter, realizing there was no turning back. Whatever secrets he held, whoever these people were, they wouldn't leave until they got what they wanted. My son took a deep breath, his jaw set. "Mom, you have to trust me. We can't let them take this." I nodded, fighting the urge to scream, to run, to collapse. I realized then that our lives had changed forever. The danger wasn't something distant anymore, it was here, breathing down our necks, forcing us into choices we weren't ready to make. I still remember the moment we ran toward the narrow alleyway, shadows of men moving behind us, the sound of their footsteps echoing like thunder. Every step we took felt like stepping deeper into a storm we couldn't escape. The documents pressed against my son's chest felt like they were burning through my hands, carrying the weight of a truth that could destroy lives. We turned a corner, only to find the alley blocked by another figure. My heart stopped. The man's face was hidden under a hood, but the presence of danger radiated from him like heat. My son froze, his hand tightening on mine. "Mom, don't move," he whispered. "This is it. This is who they sent for the first warning." I still remember my knees trembling as the figure stepped closer, a slow, deliberate pace that made the seconds stretch into eternity. And then, the hood was pulled back, revealing a face I almost recognized from somewhere, a stranger, but familiar somehow, and the chilling realization hit me: our lives were tangled in something much bigger than family drama. Much, much bigger. The man spoke, his voice low and cutting. Hand over the documents. You don't understand what's at stake. My son's eyes flashed, his jaw set. No. They stay with me. And you, whatever you are, will not take them. I still remember the electricity in the air, the silence between words, the tension so thick I could feel it pressing against my chest. My son's courage was shining through, but I could sense the danger closing in, and a part of me wondered, had we already gone too far? And just as the figure lunged forward, a sudden sound of sirens echoed in the distance, splitting the night like lightning. The stranger hesitated. My son seized the moment, grabbing my hand, and we ran deeper into the maze of alleys. I still remember the fear, the adrenaline, and the realization that our lives had crossed into a world I had never imagined. We were no longer just mother and son, we were two people fighting to survive a secret that could destroy everything we loved. And in that instant, I knew the climax was coming. I still remember that night. The sirens were wailing in the distance, and every shadow in the alley felt alive, dangerous, waiting to strike. My son gripped my hand tightly as we ran, the documents pressed close to his chest like a shield. Our breaths came in short, sharp gasps, the cold night air burning our lungs. I realized, with a mixture of fear and awe, that he had been carrying a secret far bigger than I had imagined, and now, it had dragged both of us into a storm we couldn't ignore. We ducked into a narrow passageway, trying to stay out of sight. My son's eyes were sharp, scanning every corner, calculating every step. "Mom, we need to get these to someone we can trust," he whispered, his voice trembling with urgency. I nodded, my mind racing, but all I could think about was the danger, the strangers, the unknown forces chasing us. I still remember the sound of footsteps closing in, heavier now, faster. The shadowy figure from before was following us, relentless, and the sirens were growing louder, signaling that someone else, someone official, was on our side, but it was still uncertain who we could trust. My heart pounded in my chest, the adrenaline making every nerve sharp, every movement instinctive. We turned a corner and finally saw a small safe house my son had mentioned, a place hidden in plain sight. We slipped inside quickly, closing the door behind us, and for the first time that night, I felt a tiny flicker of safety. My son put the documents on a table, opened them carefully, and motioned for me to sit. I could see the exhaustion on his face, but also a fierce determination. I still remember the look in his eyes as he began to explain. "Mom, everything I've done, everything I've kept from you, was to protect you. And to protect others. These documents, they reveal corruption, lies, and actions that could ruin lives if they fall into the wrong hands. That man and the others, they're after it because they want control. They don't care who gets hurt." My stomach turned. The son I had thought I knew, the boy who mocked me, who challenged me, was now revealing a strength and courage I hadn't imagined. Fear and pride warred inside me. I realized that the danger we had faced together had transformed him, and it had changed me too. I still remember the moment we made a plan. Together, we decided to protect the documents, to get the truth to the right people, and to confront the shadows that had threatened our lives. It wasn't easy. The tension, the fear, and the unknown were constant, but I could see that by trusting each other, by staying united, we had a chance. Hours passed, the night stretching on, and finally, the first light of dawn crept through the windows. The shadows seemed less threatening now, though I knew they hadn't disappeared. My son sat beside me, exhausted but resolute. "Mom, I couldn't have done this without you," he said softly. And in that moment, I realized something important. Even when the world seemed against us, we had each other, and that was stronger than fear, stronger than threats, stronger than secrets. I still remember the relief, the quiet hope that filled the room, the sense that although the danger wasn't completely gone, we had survived it together. My son had shown me a side of him I never knew, and I had discovered a courage inside myself I didn't know existed. And as the morning sun rose, I made a promise to myself and to him, no matter what secrets the world hid, no matter how dangerous life became, we would face it together. Life isn't always safe. Life isn't always fair. But it's the choices we make, the love we hold, and the courage we show in the darkest moments that define us. And that night, I understood that truth more deeply than ever. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support means I can share more true life stories filled with mystery, suspense, and emotion, stories that remind us all of the power of family, courage, and resilience.